I just need one. Thank you.
Like, exactly.
I tell her I need 9 copies and I get 9 copies.
Call the county council meeting to order. Mr. Ritzky has a pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Kuzic,
Present.
Mrs. Ferraro,
Here,
Mr.
present.
Giovanni,
Here.
Mr. Heckman,
Here.
Mr. Lott,
Here.
Mr. McGee,
Here.
Mr. Myers,
Here.
Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Here.
Ms. Zirinsky. Here. All present.
Okay, great. Everybody take a moment of Zen. And I'm going to have a motion to approve the minutes of October 1st.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, Ms. Vargo Hefner and Mr. Giovanni. Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, good, done. All right, confirmation of appointments. Mr. McGee, I think you have a resolution.
I do. Resolved by Northampton County Council that the following individuals shall be confirmed in their appointment as indicated thereafter. Drug and Alcohol Advisory Board, appointments. Blair Kettler, term to expire June 30th, 2022. Angel Ackerman of Easton, and Francine Huber of Bangor. And so moved. We discussed this last night at the committee meeting.
Very good. Is there any discussion on any of these? If not, call the vote.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Heckman,
Yes.
Mr. Lott,
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky. Yes. Mr. Kuzic,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Courtesy of the floor, is there anyone, we don't have anyone signed in, do we? Just a second. No one's there? All right, no one has signed in. Is there anyone here who would like to address council at this time? Seeing no one, we'll move on to the county executive report. Do you have a report, Mr. Executive?
I do, sir. I have notes in my Eagles.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mr. Barron gave this to me.
Tell Mr. Barron to send him a playbook.
Mr. Barron, send the Eagles a playbook.
Are you guys done picking on my Eagles?
Hey, I'm suffering with you, pal.
How about we get somebody replaced and let these kids?
all right, let's go.
So, we've talked a lot this year about our efforts to try and hold two competing notions in our head, which is defined as insanity. And those notions are providing the maximum amount of protection for our employees and our citizens vis-a-vis COVID-19 caused by the coronavirus, and moving on with life in the sense that we have taxpayers who need the vital services that we provide. And so throughout this time, since March, we've been talking about pandemic progress. And we've even gone so far as to create a pandemic protection plan, which throws a lifeline to help our small businesses survive and thrive. And we've had a plan, and you see we have high-tech temperature screening all throughout this county. We're doing everything we can to protect people. We're doing everything we can to protect businesses. And as part of that pandemic progress, I am here tonight to report to you that the Forensic Center is finished.
Yay.
We are extending, this is save the date. It's the 23rd, next week, at 2 p.m. to cut the ribbon. Please try and be there. This council is the only council that had the vision and the courage to move forward on a project that every person who sat on that dais and the dais before this dais said we needed. This council actually did it. So please, to the extent that you can be there, be there. I intend to recognize you. We are intending to extend an invitation to President Heckman to represent council in a speaking role at the ribbon cutting. And so write something, Ron, okay? Okay. Since you probably remember most of the 30 years of that, we should build a forensic center. So that's your save the date. It's done. Here we go. We received our first payment on the XLs, about $1.7 million from the Commonwealth is now in our coffers. That's payment one. We're going to receive an additional payment to get us to that 60% of the number that we laid out. So that's great news. We're on our way to being reimbursed for that. I'll talk about the credit Mr. Dertinger deserves with respect to the Forensic Center on the day we actually cut that ribbon. But Mr. Dertinger also did something, I think, that hasn't been done in many, many moons. And that is he has agreed with the Conservation District on a new memorandum of understanding. This is important, and I want to credit the Conservation District and Ted Ferrisink. This is important because this MOU had not been updated in decades. And the MOU was inconsistent with the Home Rule Charter and the Administrative Code. Those inconsistencies have now been rectified, and everyone knows where everyone stands. It's in writing, we've signed it, and we're moving forward with that. Mr. Dertinger said at the last budget meeting that we received about $255,000 in our SHRIN TIF payment. That has us up to $738,658.55 toward the $2 million commitment for farmland preservation out of the SHRIN TIF. My predecessor had an agreement in place that would have left us far short of the $2 million. We have renegotiated that agreement, and we believe we will get very close to that $2 million commitment that they made all those years ago. And of course, we're plowing it back in to farmland preservation. So that's great news. Council, as you know, Easton Hospital was owned by a for-profit corporation. It is now owned by St. Luke's, which, as you know, is a nonprofit. They are currently seeking to take most, if not all, of that property off of the tax rolls for their charitable purposes. And we have reached an agreement whereby they will make a payment in lieu of taxes over 2 years to Northampton County in the amount of $289,000. And you may say, well, $289,000, what's that? $289,000 is $289,000 more than zero. Okay? And if you are interested in a barometer for measuring the fairness of our deal, it's the same deal that Wilson Borough and the school district got. So we're very glad about that, and we're very glad that Wilson Borough and the school district are also getting this money because they need it. In front of you, you have our most recent report from your collaborative COVID-19 testing site. You can see, importantly, that we have performed to date 676 tests, and the current positivity rate is 4.6%. That is up from 3% when we started this process with coordinated health, but remember, when we ended our collaboration with Easton Hospital, we were running at 8% positive. So this is going in the wrong direction, but it isn't where it was when we finished up at Easton Hospital. So as part of your pandemic protection plan, that one side of our ledger where we're trying to protect people, you're still doing that, and we're planning on doing this through the rest of the year in our collaboration. I now will beg your indulgence. You have an ordinance on your agenda tonight for introduction, and I know we don't debate ordinances when they're being introduced, but it is, I think, an incredibly momentous ordinance in that you are accepting the Heindel property, which they are giving to Northampton County. 76.76 acres. That is an interesting number to me. When I saw it, it jumped out at me because this property is so intimately wound with the colonial experience and the pre-revolutionary experience and the revolutionary experience and the post-revolutionary experience. This property was right in the middle, in the heart of so many historical things that occurred for us in our history. And Dr. Heindel was kind enough to give me a book that he has written. And as it is Halloween, I commend the book to all of you to read because there's witches in it. But it's beautifully written, and it tells us about the history of powwow medicine. And you know, you're not just taking rocks and some developable land here. The Hexenkopf rock it glows sometimes, okay? It glows sometimes, and some people have been known to practice their First Amendment rights there certain times of the year, which we will not interfere with. We'll look the other way. I would like, if you'll indulge me, to bring the Heindels up just for a moment. Maybe Dr. Heindel will come up, Mrs. Heindel, to sort of do a better job of telling us why this property is so historic and why and I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough on behalf of the people of Northampton County for giving us this precious land, and we promise that we will be good stewards of it. But if you would just take a moment or two and sort of talk about the importance of this property.
Thank you, Mr. McClure. We've enjoyed this land for 5 decades, and it's been a big dream of ours to find some way to preserve it. It has an incredibly diverse wildflower, wildlife, and all kinds of flora and fauna, ranging from fungi to big bears. It's got streams, it's got swamps, it's got a mine hole, it's got a pinnacle rock that's the second highest in the county, for which you get a beautiful view north and south. It's just a wonderful property. As you might find out, the county was interested in acquiring it in the 1970s. A plan was made to turn it into a park, but at that time, none of the owners of the 4 respective pieces were willing to give you a price that you could have set for. Over the years, we've acquired those pieces one by one over 53 years, and we've assembled just the package that the county said it needed in 1979, 1980, just those pieces. And that's what's being gifted to you.
Well, we have both been in education all our lives, largely with older students, but lately I've been docenting, except for the last 7 months, at the Siegel Museum, where we have 4th and 5th graders for most of the time. And I got to tell you, maybe you have grandchildren, nieces and nephews, or even children who are about that age. They are so full of life, so full of curiosity, so hard to control, but that's all right because I can't wait to see them with their little nature groups. because I've seen them with some wonderful nature people that really know it, like Mrs. Culp. And I think you would be happy to just watch them soak up what they learn, because not only the history that Mr. McClure referred to, it has history that goes back 500 million years. So it's got geology all over the place. It's the largest granite outcropping in Northampton County. And there's so much to be learned from it. When the Lenape came up from Texas, the people who are the descendants of the people who used to live where all of us live now, they were tickled pink to be able to touch that, to touch it because their ancestors had walked over that land. The place is full of auras that's so exciting, and your grandchildren will love it.
Let me just say on behalf of council, thank you for this. It's appreciated, greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
And this is a night of incredible gifts, and I'm not hawking his book, but I really do want you to read that book, because the history of powwow medicine.
Where is it? Where can you get that, Moravian bookstore?
Siegel Museum,
All right, thank you.
bookstore.
It's
Okay.
it's called what? Hold that up.
Hex and Cough, History, Healing, and Hexerei.
Yes, I read it, and then my sister-in-law stole it from me, so I didn't get my copy back. Otherwise, I'd lend it to you. It's fascinating. It talks about the type of medicine that came to our area, Upper Bucks and Northampton County, from the old country, and it's just fascinating stuff. And I commend it to you all. Like I said, it's about Halloween, and there are witches in it. So I would, so if you want to scare yourself, there's a little bit of that in there too. So please go read that book. As I said, tonight's a night of special gifts, and Black Lives Matter, right? Black Lives Matter, and Mr. Dean Young from the Boys and Girls Club has a special gift that he wants to give to Northampton County. Now, he's already given it to me, but I'm not Northampton County. County Council must accept gifts, and if he would come up and, Mr. Young, if you could tell council what this, bring it up, Steve. If you could tell council what this gift is, where it comes from, how it got to you, what you're doing with it in the community, why the Boys and Girls Club wanted us to have it. Could you do that for me, please,
Absolutely.
Mr.
Thank you
Young?
very much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. And just bear with me for a few minutes. I just want to tell you a couple stories here. So back in 1992, when the Rodney King situation occurred across this nation, there were riots and there were things that were happening across this country that were not good. And even back then, the Boys and Girls Club of Easton took the initiative to inform people, if you do want to do protest, then you need to do it in a very civil way. And we organized at that time, we called it the Walk for Peace. And then after 5 years, it would go on to become named Easton Unity in Our Community Day. And for those of you who may remember that, we marched from the Boys and Girls Club of Easton, we marched from St. Anthony's Youth Center, from Shiloh Baptist, and from College Hill, and we all descended down on Center Square. And it was a symbolic gesture of all of us coming together to unify our city. It was a beautiful moment. We moved forward to the Gardner case in New York. Again, there's more conversation and talk. And then as the Boys and Girls Club, we figured we need to convene the community to come together, and we did. And we had the mayor, we had the chief of police, we had educators. We ended up having 12 forums that we had the Boys and Girls Club to denounce violence and to look at some ways in which we can find harmony, not only in our cities, but in our personal lives and how we treat each other. And so this year, there was a gentleman by the name of Johnny Wilkes, who's a local artist out of Emmaus. And he worked for the Fanatics, which was Majestics. he had done some volunteer work at the Boys and Girls Club of Easton. And so he felt pretty passionate about what was happening across the country as a result of what happened to George Floyd. So he called me and he said, I've commissioned this work. This is around June 11th. I commissioned this art piece, and I would like you to have it. And what I'd like to do is put it on eBay, and I'd like to raise money for the Boys and Girls Club. He said, I've worked and volunteered there. I like the work that you guys do. I'd like to help you raise some dollars. And I said, Johnny, I think I got a better idea. There are some very important people doing some very important work in the city of Easton and across the valley to denounce violence, to denounce the things that we saw that were being replicated in places, but not here in Easton, that we were doing better. And so I asked him if I could instead think about several people, several organizations, several industries that are addressing the issue and are addressing it the right way. And he said, that's a great idea. And gave us the ability to have 10 of these posters commissioned. Richard Masters from MCS Industry actually framed them for us. And we have a few others that we're going to sneak on some people pretty soon. But the idea here was that we knew of the good work that the council was doing. We knew of Kerry Myers and your presentation and doing what you can to help eradicate racism. And Lamont LaCour have been doing some great work with bringing business communities together and trying to figure out how can we in our community denounce what's happening, and how do we embrace diversity and celebrate diversity. So there are people like David Piperata, who's with the Eastern Area School District, and he was presented one as well. Mayor Pantel was presented one as well. Your Honor here, he honorably accepted it, and we're hoping tonight that everyone will embrace the idea that this is a discussion piece. It's a discussion piece. And if we can engage in conversation and agree to disagree civilly, right, we can all grow through in-depth conversation. And we can all learn together and recognize that as a nation, we do have a long way to go, and that we have to face the realities and then figure out how do we get through it. So I can't breathe, to me, means nothing about the police. It doesn't mean anything about defunding the police. It's not that position. I am not Black Lives Matter, by the way. I'm the Boys and Girls Club of Easton. So, but the point that I'm making is I can't breathe means a lot of things. For a young kid that comes to the Boys and Girls Club that doesn't have access to a quality education, that means I can't breathe. For those who don't have affordable health care, that means I can't breathe. And so forth and so on. So for the good work that's being done, and Lamont, I was in one of the forums that you held, which I thought was very powerful. That's one of the reasons why. I know Kerry Myers County Council, you've had at least 2 forums that I've attended. One at Shiloh Baptist Church, where there were sheriffs from all across the county coming together to be talking about, how we can make the place where we live, work, and play a safer, better, more humble and dignified place to live. So this is what this means. It's an opportunity to say, I've asked Lamont and I've asked the superintendent to put it in a place where it's visible, where people can see it, and let it become a discussion guide. And if we become a little uncomfortable, let's talk about why we're uncomfortable. So if this makes you uncomfortable, you should be walking in my shoes a few miles. And we'll learn what uncomfortable really means. So this is really, I don't think of it as a gift. I hate to say it. It is a little bit of work, right? But it's also an acknowledgement. It's an acknowledgement of, the position that you're taking and recognizing that we really need to pull our communities together. It's the best thing that we can do for the kids that we all serve. And So I thank you very much for this opportunity. I can just say, imagine, if you will, a place where men and women, both black and white, found on injustice. Imagine a world where threats are extinct, contentness is second nature, and love for all mankind is first and foremost. Imagine. And we can't just imagine it, we gotta work towards it. And this is what this is all about. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Well, what I'd,
You're not supposed to do that.
what I'd like to
Are we
do,
going to see it, Lamont? We couldn't see it when he was
Yeah.
holding it.
what I'd like to do, thank you, Mr. Young. So what I'd like to do is, in order for us to take this, I'm just going to make a motion. I make a motion that we accept the gift of artwork from Mr. Dean Young, effective the date we're at now. Is there a second to my
Second.
motion?
No, I want a discussion, okay.
Oh, all right. Well, you know what?
You have to
We
motion
can
and
put it
second.
on the, under new business, because we're still in the, so you have what I said, the motion I made. All right, Mr. Myers will second it, but we'll save that, though, for our under new business. But thank you, Mr. Young. So, because I don't want to get into a discussion now.
I was actually going to suggest that you do it in new business. so,
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
The
Young.
final piece of,
If you want to remain, I'm sorry, I'll do it right away, right after he's finished. We'll do that first, and I don't think it's going to be an issue. You can hold on if you want.
Sure.
Go ahead.
yeah, Mr. Young is absolutely right. It is a discussion piece, and it does make people uncomfortable. We'll be talking more about that in the future. I think the thing that it's important for us all to stay focused on is nobody here wants to defund any police. The acceptance of this gift on behalf of the county is not an anti-police sentiment. I'm pro-police. We need the police. We need the police. Not only do we need to fund the police, we need to spend more money on the police, and that's why Ms. Wondolowski is putting a module in the CIT training that we already do for all law enforcement in Northampton County, and she's putting an implicit bias module in there too. And everyone who's in law enforcement in Northampton County will be able to get implicit bias training, and we will pay for it. We're increasing funding for the police, and we're helping make the community safer too. So anyone who says that my suggesting you take this gift is somehow anti-police, they're missing the point. And if you're uncomfortable by that poster, maybe it's something to think and dialogue about. The final piece of my report is, as you probably heard, we had some positives at Graysdale. We had to stop in-person visitations. We got 154 in-person visitations done before we had to cancel. We canceled 164, and we are doing the window visits. As you know, we've got some great big windows at Graysdale. We're doing balcony visits there's a balcony off of Southwest 1. So the family's down on the ground and the residents come out to see them. So we're doing that. And of course, we're still doing the Skype and Zoom visits for folks too. We've got tablets all over the place. And we're really emphasizing making sure those visits take place, because we know how important it is for these folks to commune with their loved ones. And it's heartbreaking that we had to cancel the in-person, but there were 3 positives. 3 out of, what did Jen say, 1,100 people tested? That ain't bad. I think they're doing terrific work at Graysdale. They're testing again right now to try and get back on track for the 2 weeks again. And to the best of my knowledge, all the folks who tested positive are symptom-free tonight. That's the last report I had. So that concludes my report. I know it was interesting, but it's a night of gifts.
The county executive, before we move on. Oh, Mr. Myers.
We are still testing at the L48 health building.
Yes, sir, and we're going to through the end of the year at least.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I don't have any old business on the agenda. Does anybody have any old business that they wanted to discuss? Old business. Seeing none, what we're going to do is, first, I'm going to entertain the motion that was made and seconded. If you would read that, Ms. Ms. Zembo. Short and sweet, but.
Mr. Heckman made a motion to accept the artwork from Mr. Dean Young of the Easton Boys and Girls Club on this date, October 15th, 1920.
Thank you. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Ms. Ferraro, I think you wanted to say something.
Okay. I didn't really know this was coming up. Dean, I have the greatest respect in the world for you. I've known you through the years, and I know the good work that you do. I think it's horrific that this man lost his life over a $20 bill dispute. I'm just I'm not uncomfortable. What I am uncomfortable with, the fact that the background of Mr. Floyd, he did not have a stellar career. There are so many role models in the Black community. I mean, you have Clarence Thomas, you have Toni Morrison, you have Langston Hughes, you could go on and on and on. It just bothers me a great deal that this man is being glorified. And when I feel that he wasn't the kind of role model or I mean, he tried to do good things. He got involved with his church, he tried, but he fathered 5 kids with all different women. I mean, he just wasn't the role model that we should expect in our world today. So that's what I think is bothering me about this. I understand. I grew up in the 50s. I was in high school. I remember the Freedom Riders. I remember my friend Barry was part of the when they integrated Little Rock. He went through all of that. He was in the Air Force at the time, told to stay out of town. He had to change his license plate from New Jersey to Arkansas so he wouldn't be harassed. I mean, we've had a horrible history in this country of racial acceptance. And right now I bought a place in Florida, and I've come to find out they had the worst KKK history in the whole Florida. I mean, Thurgood Marshall got his start in our town in Florida, and a fabulous history that he accomplished. But there's just so many good people. It just bothers me that this man is a poster child. I understand what happened to him. I understand the significance of the saying, but I just wish it would have come from someone with a more stellar background. That's my speech.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Mr. Myers?
Peg, I sympathize with you to a certain extent. But understand something. God don't pick heroes. God picks whoever he chooses as his vessel. Unfortunately, everybody at some point has a checkered past. Because if we didn't have a checkered past, we wouldn't learn how to be good people. You can't throw bricks if you got a glass house. So he fathered 5 kids by 5 different women. Means absolutely nothing to me. I can name you at least 10 athletes who have fathered more, and they're in the Hall of Fame. We've got a president who likes to talk about bragging and putting his hands on women in the wrong places. I cringe when I hear someone say, I wish we could pick a different role model. If you listen to what the FBI said about Dr. Martin Luther King, he was the biggest whoremonger that ever was created on this earth. All of that was not ever proven. But yet, at that time, J. Edgar Hoover put out a complaint that he was. We have got to get past what people have done, and we have to put our foot forward. Dean, we've known each other since we were knee-high to grasshoppers. I've worked with you, I have coached and ran your organizations, and I know the goodness in your heart. And, you know, whether it's George Floyd or Arthur Ashe or whoever, it doesn't matter. At this point in time, that poster is a discussion item. It's a great discussion item, because if we can't talk about race, we're never going to heal. That you can use and quote, folks. Race is not an easy conversation for even us to have. Like I've always said, I have a large family. I have a brother who tells me all the time, why do you got to talk about race? Because he doesn't want to. It's not easy for us to talk about it. It's a very hard subject to handle. And what we got going on in this nation right now with the division that scares the hell out of me, we in this community, and I commend this council, when I came forth with a resolution, I got a 9-0 vote. Let's take our step and move forward with this thing, folks. You know, what that is a conversation piece, and I wouldn't care if it's Malcolm X and Martin Luther King or some pimp on the corner who got his neck broke. It's a discussion item. We can't pick who people put on the pillar, you know, because if we have to start judging at what people do, only thing we'll start is we got to look at Jesus Christ, and he was just a carpenter.
Not just, come on.
You know, and that I'm not trying to say, but when we start labeling people, we're wrong. Nobody in this room or on this earth has the letter G-O-D in their name. And if you are, don't think you are him or her, whoever it is. Only thing I ask at this point is, I sympathize, I hear where you're coming from. We can't change the way we were raised. Only thing we can do is change from this point on if we're willing to do that. And if we're not willing to do that, then you're not willing to do that. But I'm going to move on without you anyway. And for all you guys who did this, thank you very much.
Are there any other comments, Ms. Zirinsky?
Yeah. It is on. I just want to thank you for bringing this to us, to this gift. And I actually think that this is the perfect picture. Because if we think that this is an imperfect man who doesn't deserve to be held up, we have to look at ourselves and the circumstances that our culture and our society have created that helped create him. And we have to take responsibility for that. And I think that has to be at the core of this conversation. And if that picture is hard to look at, God help us all. We need to look inside of our hearts and have compassion for those who are not like us, for whose path is far more difficult than ours, and who come, humbly to a purpose in their life that he didn't bring that on himself. George Floyd didn't ask to be a martyr. He was made one because he's a symbol for the community. Any child in the Black community could be George Floyd. We must look at that picture and know that we should prevent that from happening every day.
Believe me, I would not like nothing more than to prevent all that. And I hope I'm not being judged for expressing my opinion and for not understanding, I guess. And I have taught school for 30 years. I've had kids of every race, creed, whatever. And, they're all one. I feel I'm a compassionate person. And
This is the dialogue that needs to happen, though.
What?
This is the dialogue that needs to happen.
That's the point.
I do. I would love to talk more in depth with Kerry. I have the greatest respect for him. His articulate, he speaks better than I do. That's for sure.
You are as much a product of this society as George Floyd is. we have all been cultivated with our implicit bias, with our tendencies, our understanding. We're all molded and formed in this environment. But when we branch out and reach further beyond ourselves, that's when we can have these important discussions. And I don't think we should shy away from them.
Okay, I don't think,
And I think it's great that you brought it up, because now we can have an open dialogue. And no one shames you.
I think it just bothered me that it was horrific, a $20 bill, and that they went to those extremes. What's the matter with this world?
I think we can
Okay.
all agree there's a lot to repair in this world. And I think you've made your points. I would say that if I like to be optimistic, and I look at America as always can improve, I think when we're willing to, I think we're the place that can make it happen, because at the same time as we were writing a document that's revered the world over, saying all men are created equal, we were doing it while people of a race were in bondage. So we've had a very, very strange history, and it still goes on, but I think what Peg and what you both have said is, even as a conversation piece, that is critical, because there's our concerns about having the conversations, and it's important to have them. And I, as old as I am now, sometimes I forget, and I think I'm a new guy on council. I forget.
May I just add one
But
thing?
the thing is, I like to think that we're not nearly as bad as our critics say we are, and we're not quite as good as we sometimes think we are. So I think we all have room to work on ourselves, and we all have the same goal in mind. I think we all want to live in peace and harmony with each other, and I think everybody treated equally. And I think if we have that in our minds and hearts, I think we'll make it. I don't know when, but I think we will.
Do you
Peg,
think,
did you want to
do you
finish
think
up?
it's, my one last thought, just think about it, this being in a courtroom. Will it influence jurors?
I don't think.
Will it intimidate our police officers that come through? Is it appropriate in a courthouse? That's my question.
Well, we have a government center as well as a courthouse, and judges are quite clear when they talk to me about the difference between the government center and the courthouse.
Oh, yeah.
I would say that we can find an appropriate place to have Mr. Meyer.
Just one thing,
We could have
'cause
that
Peg asked a
discussion with the
question when you think,
executive.
I just want to answer this question for her, and I think I can answer it better than anybody else, because I sat in 2 sessions with police chiefs. The overwhelming feeling that came out of my meetings, and Lamont had a couple, is that they are all very sickened by what happened.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Nobody can question
So as
it.
far as seeing that and them being upset with it, it hasn't, just the pure symbol of what happened, I think they would be fine with that. But they're like them, they're under the microscope like we are at this point right now. I feel for them, because they're not getting the respect they deserve. But you know what? In every batch of apples, there's always one bad one. And until we can clean out the bad one, and they're going to have to do what we've had to do. We've had to clean out the bad ones, and they're going to have to clean out their bad ones. And I am absolutely 100% positive they do, and they will. And I have no problem, with the police departments. There is a sign in front of my house with "I support the Palmer Township Police Department," and it will stay there long after anything else goes on, because I've always had respect for them, and I know everybody else has too. So at this point right now, only thing I'd say is let it be a conversation piece, but, the police themselves are going to have a conversation with themselves, just like we are. And that's one thing we're just going to have to get along with, folks. And I sit up here with all you guys, and I have the utmost respect for every single one of you here, and I hope that's the same. And we will get along, and we will make a difference if it's physically possible. We can start here to make a difference. Mr. Young has children of all color and types and orientations. He's always made a difference. And if he's doing it from that side and we're doing it from this side, we in Pennsylvania will be the keystone of peace and prosperity.
Okay, I'm going to make a move that we vote. I think that this accomplished what part of the intention was, that we've already started discussions, and I'm sure discussions will continue. And that's a good thing. And I know Mr. Myers and I, when this originally happened, he and I had a few long conversations, and that's important. So I'm going to call for the vote right now, unless somebody has something burning to say. Otherwise,
I would like to say something.
go ahead, Ms.
I'd like to say thank you again to Mr. Young and get back to the purpose at hand. You gave us a beautiful piece of art, and art is evocative. So obviously, you've accomplished your task by presenting it this evening. And, you know, my father passed away a year ago tomorrow. He grew up with racist ideas. He was a product of his time and his culture. But I brought Ta-Nehisi Coates' book into the house, and one day he died at 93. And 2 years ago, he said, "What's that about?" He goes, "It's about what it's like to be a black man in America." And he said, "I'd really like to read that. I'd like to understand what that is." So there's hope for us all. So thank you for bringing us hope tonight.
All right, I'm going to call. All right, call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Abstain.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
The motion passes by a vote of 8-0 with one abstention.
All right, very good, thank you. Thank you again, sir. All right, next, what I'm going to do is President's prerogative. We have some people here for this number 6 on your agenda for the GPA. I was asked if I would consider moving this up. Consideration of a general purpose authority, Lehigh Valley Health Network project resolution. So I am going to put that up now from number 6 to number 1, and we will entertain that. And I believe on that one, if I'm not mistaken, that is Ms. Fargo Hefner. Would you introduce the resolution?
Yeah, when I find it.
Yeah, take your time. Sorry. Got all the time in the world. Don't worry about it.
Oh, thank you. Well, you know, you skipped around. I got 27
You know,
papers.
it's what happens sometimes.
Where do I start? Now therefore be it resolved by the Northampton County Council as follows. The above clauses are incorporated herein and made a part hereof by this reference. It is desirable, determined, and declared pursuant to the act that it is desirable for the health and safety and welfare of the people in the area served by the borrowers for the authority to undertake the financing of the project through the issuance of the bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $110 million. The declaration made with respect to the project extends to refunding bonds with respect to the project and any additional bonds necessary to complete the project, which may be issued by the authority, provided, however, that such declaration shall not be deemed to authorize changes increasing the scope of the project. The approval of this project shall not obligate the taxing authority of this county or its funds in any way. The proper officers and other personnel of Northampton County are hereby authorized and empowered to take all such further action and execute additional documents as they may deem appropriate to carry out the purpose of this resolution. Any resolution or part of any resolution conflicting with the provisions of this resolution is hereby repealed insofar as the same affects this resolution. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, discussion.
I just need to say that I can't vote on this. I have to recuse myself because I work for a competitive organization, but I fully support this kind of project and their using of the GPA for financing, but I can't vote on it.
All right, well, discussion, Mr. Hartney's here, and I believe we have representative, but Mr. Myers, go ahead.
There were a couple questions that we asked yesterday at the meeting, and if he's here, he can answer them for us.
Who do you want to, who, which
The
one?
gentleman from the
From Lehigh Valley.
Lehigh Valley
Valley
Health Network?
Procurement
All right,
officer.
could you introduce yourself so we can put it on the record?
Certainly. Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having us on the agenda so quickly. I'm John Brodsky. I'm the treasurer of the organization. As we discussed yesterday, we're coming back for a second phase for the Hecktown Oaks project. Last year, you did approve the first phase of this, which was a $130 million construction project for the for the basic hospital that is being constructed up in Lower Nazareth Township. We had always planned a second phase, which is a patient tower to be constructed. We are just accelerating that plan to move it forward with that right now. The combined facility should be completed by around this time next year. The additional project for which we're asking for your approval tonight is roughly $23 million that will complete a 4-story patient tower. We're only going to fit out the first floor of that. We don't think we need all that space now. But like a lot of institutions, we'll build the larger facility and then shell the space until it's needed. There were a couple of questions raised last night. One was on staffing. In its first year of operations, it is estimated to have 360 FTEs employed at the facility. That's both staff and medical staff. By the 5th year, that would grow to roughly 450, and out 10 years, again, assuming a staffing up and ramping up with the utilization of the facility, that would bring it to nearly 500 in staff. It was also asked how was this project being built under prevailing wage. That is not a standard for the health network. We have generally pursued open shop and non-union wages in our construction projects, and that's how the existing facility is moving forward at this time. I don't think there were any other questions that were raised, but I'm happy to address any other questions you may have.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions for the gentleman?
I got a
Mr.
question for Mr. Hartney,
Mr. McGee.
when you're done.
All right, well, let me see. Do we have any questions for the gentleman at this moment? All right, why don't you come up, Mr. Hartney? Thank you. But if you could just hold on till we have the vote. Go ahead.
On the grant, on the loan, is there administrative fees?
Yes.
What are they?
So we get 20 basis points.
Okay,
So we're anticipating about $200,000.
okay.
That will go to the general purpose authority. And then that money is reinvested into projects like the Glendon Hotel.
If ever a day.
You already got a plan for it.
Oh, wow. That's a good comeback.
Okay,
Black Lives Matter to Glendon Hotel.
thank you. That's all I had. And thank you for finding
One
that
can
information
dream.
out for us.
Jeez. Any other questions for either the Health Network or Mr. Hartney? Seeing none, call the vote.
Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Recuse myself.
Mr. Myers,
Yep.
Ms. Zirinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro,
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Heckman,
Yes.
Mr. Lott,
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes,
Adopted by a vote of 8-0 with 1 recuse.
Thank you. All right, now we'll go back to the original agenda. Thank you for attending tonight, sir. An introduction of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the County Council of Northampton County Authorizing the Donation of Approximately 76.76 acres of real property to the County of Northampton and Williams Township, Pennsylvania, from Ned and Linda Heindel." Will somebody sponsor this?
I will.
Okay. Ms. Zirinsky, Mr. Kusick, and the possible hearing and debate, possible vote will be held at the November 5th meeting. Thank you. All right, now we'll go to number 2. The introduction of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the County Council of Northampton County Authorizing the Purchase of Approximately 91.73 acres of real property by the County of Northampton and Lower Mount Bethel Township and Washington Township, Pennsylvania, from St. Anthony of Pedua Parish. Will someone sponsor this?
Yes.
Who did?
Tom.
Tom. And second, Ms. Myers. And let the record show that this is where Mr. Spadoni camped a lot when he was a kid in this land. Anyway,
Amanda Rotten and
the
Cal-
public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at the November 5th, 2020 meeting. All right. Consideration of a resolution regarding waiver of appraisal requirement for land acquisition from St. Anthony of Padua. Boy, I'm screwing that up.
You read that.
Padua. I don't know. I'm having trouble with it. Padua Parish. Ms. Zirinsky, would you introduce the resolution? Sometimes you hit a blank.
Okay, now therefore be it hereby ordained and enacted by the Northampton County Council that the requirement for 2 sealed appraisals as required under section 13.14B 2 of the Administrative Code be waived for the purchase of approximately 92 acres located in Lower Mount Bethel Township and Washington Township, Pennsylvania, as open space and a nature preserve. So moved.
Thank you. All right, discussion, Mr. Kusick.
More of a question for solicitor. The language hereby ordained and enacted, that sounds to be more appropriate for an ordinance. Shouldn't it be hereby resolved by the?
Okay, it should be hereby resolved.
Okay.
It sounded very Catholic, though.
All right.
Okay, so then I'm going to make that motion then to strike ordained and enacted and replace that with resolved.
Okay, so you're amending the resolution. That's your motion. Who wants to second that? Okay, Ms. Zirinsky seconds. All right, so we can have discussion. I don't think if anybody wants to say anything. He made it clear. Let's call for the vote on the amendment.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yep.
Spargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
All right, so now we'll go back to discussion on the resolution as amended. Is there anybody that has any further discussion on it? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Spargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. And again, I want to point out that many of these things that we don't have discussion on, they've been at committee meetings and they've been discussed, just so for the people tuning in that we have had discussions. Next, we'll go to consideration of a resolution accepting the withdrawal of Williams Township grant application for the Nedoa, somebody's killing me today. Nedoa property conservation easement. Ms. Zirinsky.
Yeah. Now therefore be it resolved by the Northampton County Council, the Northampton County Council hereby accepts Williams Township's withdrawal of the Nahota Property Conservation Easement Resolution Number 64-2019. Further, the Northampton County Executive, through the Office of the Program Administrator of the Northampton County Livable Landscapes Program or designee, is authorized to take any and all steps necessary to administer and complete Northampton County's obligations in this project. The Northampton County Council further authorizes the Northampton County Executive to unencumber the $117,945.45 and place back into the appropriate fund of the Open Space Initiative, environmentally sensitive funds from which it was allocated. So much.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, call for the vote.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Zirinsky. Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee. Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
All right, next we'll go to something I think I can read. Consideration of a calendar year 2021 court cost increases resolution. Ms. Fargo Hefner, would you introduce this, please?
Now therefore be it whereas on October 7, 2020, a court order was issued authorizing court cost increases to take effect on January 1st, 2020, and whereas included in the court order were the fee schedule and the state/county payment distribution table, see attachment 1. Now therefore be it resolved that any other fee schedule inconsistent herewith is hereby repealed insofar as the same affects the attached fee schedule.
Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Myers?
Just so we're clear on this, at yesterday's meeting, this is being ordered to us by the state, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is not something that we chose to do. We're being mandated to do it. That's
Yes,
why I
sir.
want to make sure it's in the record, okay?
All right, any other discussion? If there is none, call for the vote.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. McGee. Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. All right, next then we jump to the 7th, because we had done the other one. Consideration of a resolution regarding a donation from Friends of Graysdale to Graysdale residents. Ms. Fargo Hefner, would you introduce that?
Now therefore be it hereby resolved that Northampton County Council authorizes the Department of Human Services, Graysdale, to accept $2,000 from the Friends of Graysdale to be used by the volunteers to purchase Christmas gifts for residents.
Okay, is there any,
Time already?
sorry, excuse me, what, hold on. Discussion, Ms. Zirinsky? Anybody else? All right, call for the vote.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
I remember.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now I guess we're going to the consideration of a resolution from the farm stand to Graysdale employees. Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Now therefore be it hereby resolved that Northampton County Council authorizes the Department of Human Services, Graysdale, to accept 675 pounds of apples for Graysdale employees from the farm stand at Easton Public Market. And none of these here were from that stash.
Where did these come from?
They were a little gift from me, because y'all looked hungry yesterday. We talked about the apples. Yeah, they're free from me.
I thought they might be poisoned.
Well, yeah.
Okay, what? No, okay, so, discussion on this 675 pounds.
Thank you.
Cider with it?
If
Stop
there
with the
is none,
cider.
call for the vote.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Okay, next we have consideration of a resolution regarding a donation from Penn State Extension and the Monocacy Creek Watershed Association. Ms. Fargo Hefner, would you introduce?
Now therefore be it resolved that Northampton County Council authorizes the Northampton County Public Works Department Parks Recreation Division to accept riparian buffer plantings from Penn State Extension and Monocacy Creek Watershed Association.
Okay, thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, call for the vote.
Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to go on to consideration of resolutions regarding Article 13 contracts. Vision Technologies, Grace Industries Incorporated, and the Reinvestment Fund. We'll start with Vision Technologies. Ms. Fargo Hefner, would you introduce the resolution, please?
Whereas on September 28, 2020, Northampton County Council received a request from the county executive for county council to adopt a resolution endorsing a contract with Vision Technologies for Polycom Real Presence Claret in the amount of $104,990.40. Is it Claret or Clarity?
Clarity.
With a Y.
That's missing.
Now therefore be it resolved that the Northampton County Council does hereby concur with the recommendation of the county executive as set forth in the attached documentation to approve an amendment to the contract with Vision Technologies.
Okay, thank you. Is discussion?
It's an I.
It's an I, yeah.
What?
It's misspelled in the
An I has to
resolution.
be added to the end.
Scrivener.
We don't, that's a Scrivener's there.
All right, hold on. What do you, excuse me,
Right
what are you
here.
saying, Ms. Hefner?
It says Claret, and it's Clarity, and it's with an I, as I see on the contract. So we just
Oh, so
have
it's
to,
just an I and it shouldn't be,
yeah.
all right, that's Scrivener's error. All right, that's Ken Kraft's favorite phrase.
Okay.
Let's, all right, so let's go. Discussion beyond that.
Can we vote on each one separately?
Oh, yeah, we are. We're doing vision first, absolutely. And then we're going to do Grace, and then we're going to do reinvestment. I have a question, Mr. Barron. Just so I understand, we've talked about this, and I just want to be clear. What this is. It has nothing to do with Skype per se.
No, it's the infrastructure to allow us to use multiple platforms over our network securely. So it's going to make things, you probably will not see anything different when you're looking at it, but it will allow us to be able to do things more securely over our network. And have other people interface and interact with your meetings and any meetings we do within the county much better with the platform they're most comfortable with.
Is there a projected date on this?
I think I said yesterday, but we have to purchase it because it is COVID money. We will be purchasing it this year, the servers and the equipment. And my hope is that at the end of the year, the beginning of next year, we will have everything working and in operation. But we will have the servers here before year end.
Yeah, I mean, because, and I'm curious, and we've had a few conversations, you and I. My concern is, as the executive was talking about early on, I'm concerned about a spike, and I'm concerned as we move forward, we may be back to virtual meetings. And you know, as we spoke, it's really a big thing about being the public being able to interact with us, whatever platform. So whatever we've got to do to make it work, because, I mean, I'm hoping, we all hope, but, you know, who knows?
I have the utmost confidence that if you go all virtual, meaning that everybody is virtual, you will be able to control your meetings with whatever platform you have and interact with the public.
Okay. Yeah, that's the big key.
It's the mix of here and virtual where we hit tripping points.
Gotcha.
So,
Does anyone else have a question for?
Just a clarification, I think Mr. Giovanni corrected us yesterday, as of 21 of next year, July 21?
July 21.
Okay, that Skype's going to be done.
well, Skype for Business is not going to be what it's called. My guess is there will be a repackaging of Microsoft Teams, as we discussed yesterday. Chances are they're probably going to call it Microsoft or Teams Enterprise or something along those lines. So stay tuned.
Okay. Any more questions, Mr. McGee?
Just, you mentioned the phone infrastructure. Is this going to help with that, or you still have to,
So-
we still have to deal with that? And That's something that,
There's a little bit of a tie-in, Mr. McGee, and the little bit of a tie-in is this. So when you have Skype for Business on your phones right now, this will actually force you when you set up a conference call or a meeting, because technically your virtual meeting is a big conference call. It forces you to reset passwords. It moves people onto the secure county infrastructure, and it brings them inside the firewall. Right now, as people interact with our meetings, they're outside the firewall, and we let them in temporarily. Anybody who interacts with the meetings over the secure server will be on the other side of our firewall, which will help foster those interactions and make them much better.
Okay. Follow-up question then. If that's the case, are we going to have somebody monitoring in case we get a cuckoo bird that decides to do something crazy?
So yes, we right now we have people that monitor your meetings downstairs anyway. So yes, we are going to make sure that we keep things as safe as possible, so we don't have what happened in other counties where, yeah.
You want cuckoo bird in the record?
thank you.
Mr.
That's
McGee, you still, I'm sorry.
No,
You still have
he was,
anything to say?
and yeah, actually, for the record, yesterday was very helpful. I found more stuff out that I never, ever knew about our infrastructure and our communications, and thank you.
Anybody have any other questions or comments in the discussion?
I'm good.
Oh, you're good, Tom? Okay, fine, thank you, Baron. All right, if there's no other discussion, let's call for the vote.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. All right, next we have Grace Industries Incorporated. Mr. Fargo Hefner, would you please introduce this?
On October 5th, 2020, Northampton County Council received a request from County Executive for County Council to adopt a resolution endorsing a contract with Grace Industries, Inc. in the amount of $218,693.45 for the Norbath Trail Project Phase 2 over a term of 1 year. Now therefore be it resolved that Northampton County Council does hereby concur with the recommendation of the county executive as set forth in the attached documentation to approve a contract with Grace Industries, Inc.
Thank you. Discussion. Ms. Zirinsky.
Did we hear something similar just before where we had a discussion about Grace?
I'm sorry,
It was rebid.
your microphone, I couldn't hear you.
My microphone is on.
All right, well, you were doing very soft voice. It was like a very namaste voice.
Said
so.
no one ever.
All right, so I'm sorry, would you just repeat that?
Yeah. Did we not have a discussion on Grace Industries before?
Yes, they sent it out for rebid, and this is the rebid. It was repackaged and it was rebid, and it was discussed yesterday, but you can ask questions
So
today.
this is the lowest responsible bidder.
Yes.
I think I had mentioned before that I would not be able to vote in favor of Grace Industries because of previous experience that I've had with them. I would not be able to endorse them for this project.
Well, all right, any other discussion or
Due to
statement? Anybody?
incompetence.
All right, let me
Just saying.
make sure, are you finished, Tara?
Yep,
All right,
totally done.
Mr. McGee.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. The gentleman, I see him in the back there from Grace. I don't know if we can address some questions.
Do you mind coming up to answer any questions? If you could just give your name for the clerk, please.
Daniel Shavak, Shivok.
Mr. Shavak, thank you again for coming a second night in a row, and I know you were up there answering some pointed questions yesterday. First of all, after finding out the information that you presented to us, I'm very humbled, and I think it's great that it's going to be a donation to the county. But I do have a couple of concerns concerning the competitive bid process. And that wasn't known until after the bid, I guess. So, I mean, I don't know, as far as, is there anything else that you can tell us about, anything about yesterday, or that's?
No,
Okay.
and what do you mean?
Well, with it being a donation, which is great.
It's not, how is it a donation? We chose to do it at zero profit. It's our community outreach.
Okay.
It's
okay.
not a donation.
Well, I'm glad you're clarifying that, because last night you said it was a donation. And then you said that you pick so many projects a year. And I was just curious, if you had any other examples of some of the projects that you also did.
We haven't done any this year.
Okay.
Other.
Well, you said you did one a year, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, because I guess where I was going was, if there was a donation, then it would have to have been some value there, right?
Right. It is not a donation. It's our choice.
So now it's not a donation, okay.
It's
well,
our choice to do it at zero
Well, I'm just
profit.
clarifying if it's a donation or not, I guess is my question.
No.
Okay. Well, that kind of helps me a little bit more. I wish we would have found that out yesterday.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay, that's all right.
Go ahead, Mr. McGee. Is that it, or you still have more?
Well, I just, if it's a donation, I think we have to take a look at, the competitive bidding process. But if it's not a donation, then I don't.
I was going to say on that, and this is procedural, so it's not anything you've done. Does that change anything up for us at our end if he's saying, I mean, he's not saying it's a donation, but I have no offense, but it sounds like a donation. I mean, I don't know. That's why we.
It's not a donation. It's our choice to do it at zero profit.
All right, I'm almost rather you say getting $1.
They're paying them money, but they're just not making a profit.
Yeah, well, it's a fine point, probably not a point at all, but that's why we pay
Yes.
Mr. Spadoni. So, hold on.
The board should know that I spoke with Mr. McGee today about this. And with this clarification, that evaporates for me the concerns that I had in a competitive bidding process and the RFPs and the bonding and all of those issues that we talked about on the phone at lunchtime. If he indicates that this is his bid, it is not a donation. We need to keep a keen eye out, as we talked last night, that it gets done appropriately, but everything appears to be in order.
So legally, it's whether it's $0 profit or $100,000, it still falls under it, and that's it.
If they put a bid in and they say they want to lose money, that's their business.
Okay,
Well,
all right.
Am I, if I may?
No, go ahead.
Am-
Are
am-
you finished?
Yeah.
All right, that was.
My concern was for the county to make sure that they're properly following the Procurement Act, the Home Charter Rule of Article 13. That way keeps everybody out of trouble, including your company and the county. Okay?
100% understand.
And I guess, was that known to the other bidders, that you guys were going in at a zero profit on this one, or?
How would it be?
Okay.
No, we don't share to each other what the profits are.
Okay, thank you. Just a question.
Mr. Lott.
Yeah, this whole discussion came out because we were concerned about your number being, substantially half the one bidder, 150,000 less than the other bidder, and that's how this whole conversation started.
Yes.
If I recall correctly. And I just think it's worth repeating, though. Another game that played out there is people submit bids and then they come back and say extra. But, I just wanted to make it clear that we're gonna look real hard at that. So please make sure your number is good going in this thing, because we don't want that game being played on us. Thank you. That's all I have to say. And
We pride ourselves on not having extras. We are not that company.
Perfect. And I will say thank you for taking the job at no profit. That's, I've worked for a lot of contractors. They always told me they never made money, but this is the first time the management actually saying that they're not gonna make money. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't need to see his tax return. Mr. Myers.
From yesterday to today, we've had this discussion, and my friend across from me yesterday asked you a question, and I'm gonna make sure I follow up today with a little interest with my voice. And that was yesterday, we don't want surprises, we don't want to see any change orders. If a change order comes in on this project, there is going to be hell to pay. That's all I'm going to say.
And as I stated yesterday, the only way change orders, if it's engineer error.
I don't want to hear change order.
All right, okay, well, Ms. Zirinsky.
What would the cost of this been had you taken profit with it?
I don't have that with me.
Would it have been competitive with the other bidders?
I'm not positive on that.
And what happens when you take a loss? Do you get to deduct that off of your taxes?
I didn't say I'm taking a loss. I'm not taking a loss.
But if
He's
you,
just not making money.
I'm breaking even on it.
Doing it.
you're breaking even on it.
Yeah, sort of.
So you're paying your workers and you're not, so it's
Absolutely.
definitely not okay, I'm just trying to wrap my head around how this bid is this low, and if there are any.
You weren't here yesterday?
I was not able to be.
This is, the owner, understand this project starts right at where our business is and ends literally in the owner's backyard. And it's a personal project for him.
Oh.
He played on this trail as a child. He lived in East Down all his life. And it's literally in his backyard.
Yeah, so, and I wasn't here yesterday. I gotta go to the doctor tomorrow. I have an infection. Nobody cares about it, but in today's climate, I gotta get it checked out. Sinuses, I always call it the Lehigh Valley flu or whatever, but, Ms. Vargo Hefner,
Is Mr. Cope here?
I
I
think
thought I
he's
saw
sitting
him
right
hiding in
back
the
there.
back. Could I ask him a couple questions? Or if he or Mr. Amelia are part of this? I have questions
Sure,
about-
Mr. Mealy, do you mind coming up? Mr. Cope, you can take turns so you're not breathing on each other.
I guess I have a question about the financing on this. Is there some state money that goes into this as well?
Yeah, so this is part of a DCNR grant that we received, 50/50 match. The county put up 300,000 and we received 300,000.
Okay. And if the council would vote tonight to not accept this bid because they're still not comfortable with it, would this impede our ability to get that money in that match?
The grant itself is reimbursable and I believe it runs out next year. And as a phase 2, we're hoping that this can move forward so we can look at the phase 3, which is the replacement or rehab of the 3 bridges that really ties this whole section of the 5 miles that we've been working on
So
together.
could you clarify that timeline for me?
I'd have to check at the actual contract, but I believe it ends next December of 2021.
So if we chose to delay this vote tonight, it would not compromise your timeline excessively, if we wanted to wait 2 weeks and get further information?
I don't see why it would.
Okay. And I guess the other question for you or Mr. Mealy is, do you really think that this is a fair bid? Because I guess I know nothing about paving roads or building bridges, but it does seem extremely different in terms, and is it just a profit, or are there things missing that we're gonna have to tack on later?
I think if you compare it to the second lowest bid that we received from Floyd G. Hirsch, which it's not being considered tonight because it would exceed the threshold for the RCO when we factor in the alternate that we would be adding to the project. There really isn't a tremendous difference between those two values. And if you assume, even just throwing out 20% for profit and overhead on the job, it would be very close to Floyd G. Hirsch's bid. So there really isn't a tremendous difference between the first and second bid if you're taking profit out of the equation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Are there any other discussion points anybody has? It's pretty, I think we've covered it. And, somebody want to speak? Oh, no, okay. All right, well, if that's it then, thank you, both, and thank you, gentlemen from Grace. All right, call for the vote.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Lori, can I go last?
Oh, my God, yes.
I really don't know what my vote is. I'm sorry. I just can't decide.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
No.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 8-1.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll do the reinvestment fund. Ms. Fargo Hefner, that's you as well.
Whereas on October 7, 2020, Northampton County Council received a request from the county executive for county council to adopt a resolution approving a contract with Reinvestment Fund in an amount not to exceed $175,000 for a countrywide housing needs assessment and strategic plan from 2021 to 2026. Now therefore be it resolved that Northampton County Council does hereby concur with the recommendation of the county executive as set forth in the attached documentation to approve a contract with Reinvestment Fund. This was discussed yesterday at our meeting. This is the project that Ms. Wondolowski discussed at our Human Services meeting 2 weeks ago regarding housing.
All right, is there any discussion on this? Does anyone?
No, I'm just kidding. I'll leave Ms. Walnassi alone.
Okay. All right, if there's no discussion, let's call for the vote.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
No.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 8-1.
All right, is there any other new business from anyone? Seeing none. Council committee reports. Don't all jump up at once. Oh, Ms. Zirinsky?
We had the Energy, Environment, and Land Use Committee meeting today where we talked about 170 acres being preserved. That included the donation from Ned and Linda Heindel, as well as the Lower Mount Bethel and Washington Township's property. And I believe that we heard those ordinances tonight, and we'll be voting on those in the future. Awesome.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Myers.
We had a capital projects operations meeting yesterday, and there was some discussion on some of the bridges. Mr. Amelia kept us updated. Seems to be that we were given let's just say we were told one thing and it wasn't actually true to what was going on. And what came out of our meeting is that we would like to bring the folks back to have a discussion on, but I understand that you already proposed that we have Miss Becky come back with her crew
We
at
have
the beginning of the year.
Planning Commission.
All right, so the planning commission is coming back, but, you know, there
All
was
right.
some reason with that. But overall, the meeting was good, and we've got updates on when things are gonna be done, when they're gonna get started, and how many, I think we have 7 to complete, am I right? That you have 7 more we're gonna get done?
Mr. Amelia,
Yep, that's it. That's it.
I just need to know, so we have it, people on the record. He asked, did you say yes? Yes. 7 more to go. Okay, 7 more bridges. Is there any other discussion? Mr. Giovanni?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, committees. Okay,
Committees.
hold on. Any discussion all right, committee, go ahead.
Yeah, IT committee. I attended the meeting, and of course, we have fixed was a microphone feedback over to between Ms. Zelensky and Mr. Myers. We talked about the clarity. There were some issues with Eileen having to do stuff on the website. They're not totally working correctly yet, but I will be getting on at the next meeting with Bob. And they did the refreshes. Last month was like about to 36, so that's about it. Everything's rolling.
How are we, like, with the new equipment for council members? I haven't seen a list yet. Have you?
No, I also asked Bob for that and haven't got it, so I'm working on it.
Okay.
Put some pressure.
All right, I'll give him a call. All right, any other committee reports? If not, liaison. Ms. Vargo Hefner.
The GPA met last week. You did hear a lot about that yesterday in our capital projects meeting. Thank you for doing the financing on the bond with Lehigh Valley Network. And still, nothing about the Glendon Hotel.
Again.
God.
Wait, I'm lying. Am I lying? No news is no news, right?
We didn't hear back from the state on the grant.
But Glendon did approve the
Harley's taking it, yes.
I can't think of the word.
If somebody wants to come up, you got to.
The zoning, their zoning gave us approval, but we didn't get the grant. That's the thing.
Okay.
You know, that meeting is 8:15 in the morning. It's not my best hour.
It's okay to be casual, but, because I know somebody at home. Come up to the mic. So, all right, so the thing is, you're satisfied? Or-
Yeah, I mean,
don't know
I
if
think
there's
we are
anything
where we are with the
satisfying.
bridges. I don't think there's any bridges that are, like he said, there's punch list items, but I think we're, well,
I think we were all
positive
confused
word,
after
if you
the
want to frame it
PLL.
positively, is that it's back on track to where it was. We're still behind, but we're moving in the right direction. So that's the best way I could look at it. And it's nice to see financing coming in, which is what we were designed to do. So that's also good news.
As long as when Glendon goes away, the little plaque is there with Mr. Barron's name on it, we're happy.
I heard he wants the Sprite sign.
Yeah, but I want his name on it somewhere. So, anyway, okay. Back to.
We might have to make
let's
a
be serious.
resolution on that.
We're doing serious business here. Any other council liaison reports? None? Council clerk?
Yes. On next Wednesday, October 21st, is a budget hearing for the court systems, court administrations, and corrections. Then following that, on October 28th, which is another Wednesday, we have Human Services and DCED. DCED.
Those are at 4:30, right?
Department of Community and Economic Development.
4:30, right?
4:30 for both of them. All right, is that all? Council Solicitor?
No.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? We're adjourned.
Sure.
Okay.
Which one's yours, that one yours?
Yeah.